Welcome to another edition of the CivBattleRoyale. My name is Dawkinzz, and it's been a while. Just finished up my 7-month-long wedding, in case you were curious. Just kidding, lots been going on in life, and I'm sorry I'm a little late, but here is episode 7. As war rages across the cylinder, empires take to the waves for conquest. Starting on turn 181, the episode is titled To Live and Die by the Tide, so let's get right into this. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 7 of the Civilization Battle Royale X Mark II. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. It's currently lovely here. I'm user Skies Overcast, formerly known as Lordy, a resident power ranker and occasional modder, but most importantly, I'll be narrating you through the next 30 turns on the cylinder. We were left on quite a cliffhanger. Tell me about it. It's been 7 months. With a few spicy wars breaking out. So expect an exciting, all thrills, many frills action ride, replete with obscure references from yours truly. With that said, okay, let's go. Whilst it might be true that we've a few civs down to one city, how many of them do we expect to fall soon? All of them? None of them? I doubt even a medic could heal the damage to their chances in the BR, though. That's enough TF2 talk, though. Are there TF2 AI games? I hope so. The tale of the Japanese settler. Truly the most inspiring story since Sejong sent his roundabout in Mark II. Perhaps today will be the day his long ramble comes to conclusion. The journey is truly Vernian, though, so the comparison is very apt. Here we have our lovely map by Varia, a staple of the CBR as much as anything else these days. Everyone's been talking about that sexy Russia-Perm border, but there are loads of cool shapes to be found. For instance, Germany looks like a snail with a question mark above its head. Punjab are number 1 again. I'm proud that I backed them to win as of episode 0. Lots of rising and falling with the Stonkbot this past episode. I personally made a terrible loss. Feel free to join the Discord to get in on the action, especially when it's far more predictable and reliable than IRL stocks. We begin in the Caribbean, or Caribbean depending on where you are. The Marajawara Navy has been blunted on Aquitaine, even with their snake canoe galleasses, which are apparently more effective for bombarding than a tall ship. Who knew? Instead, Pacue has dispatched missionaries to convert the city. With Hispaniola settled, it's mildly surprising that the Lesser Antilles haven't yet been claimed. In the sidebar, Yuan and Japan make peace. In the Western Caribbean, meanwhile, the New Netherlands have pretty comprehensively trounced the Olmec Navy and secured Portmore for their beaver-emblazoned empire. Ukixchan isn't having a great time of it, as Rio Grande have pushed across the border and surrounded Coatzacoalcos, and even sent a settler across the backside of Central America. It looks like it'll land on the coast of Costa Rica. Nice. Gran Colombia have secured the Managua Canal with 2 citadels as well, clearly recognizing its importance to all of us on the sub. What would this game be without exclaves and border gore? Beria is settled by Araja Raja right in the ashes of his most recent conquest, and an entire Uzbekistan away from the rest of his empire, and within range of Parg retributive aggression. To the west, another exclave is under attack, with the Uzbeks beating down on Kars, one of Georgia's many wayward cities. In the heavyweight clash of Gaul and German, it looks initially like Wilhelm's warriors are on top, with Sonnenbaum in a red as troops flood in from all sides. Germany's North Sea fleet has started to cascade down towards Britain, but Vercingetorix, it's been a while since I've said these names, has pushed up to Vienna. Can they retake it? Much like that Icelandic trireme, we'll have to watch, wait, and witness. 3 W's. Wow, Indonesia, what a mess. Malacca are trying to fix this, however, and paint the islands blue. Wuhu and Tongchang are both low, and if you're Jen Cohen or Liliuokalani, you'd have to be worried that you'll be on the chopping block next. As an aside, making a good hello joke out of Hilo, having the Churkpa religion, and looking like a wave is surprisingly difficult. It doesn't seem like there's too much to write home about concerning the Punjab-Bhutan border. The Punjab army is up north, presumably on its way to Beira, whilst Bhutan have apparently trained every single citizen possible in the ways of archery. For a top 3 civ, this sparse a corps might be worrying, but given ongoing wars, I for one think it's applicable. The religious game having such a clean split down the border is also very satisfying. Wilhelm has done a phenomenal job here pushing back the Kosovan border and consequently driving a fair chunk of Ibrahim Rugova's army into the sea. Kosovo are slowly recovering from the Adriatic conflict with the two Sicilies, and this won't help at all. There's a lot of settlers about here, but unfortunately Europe is pretty full up at the minute, so they're stuck being qualified for something they can't do. Also applicable to the arts and culture sector in our world these days. The Bermuda Triangle is a space of perfectly aligned peace on the cylinder at the moment, as with no North American civs yet able to cross ocean, its pleasant one-tile pasture grows untainted by human hands. A small Icelandic fleet is hovering around Beversreid, clearly having either made friends with Peter Stuyvesant or won open borders in a peace deal. I'm inclined to believe the latter. This looks reasonably dire for the Olmecs at first glance, but given the relatively little progress Rio Grande have made on their capital, it could be much worse. Ulkikschan's minimal navy is really hurting the cause right now though, as the free funneling of reinforcements for their northern neighbors through the Gulf means that they can't easily push back with the time their walls will buy. Also, yay, my settler prediction was correct. More like Senna Burn, I guess. Wilhelm razes his conquest to the ground as the Gauls surround Vienna in a veritable Benelux bloodbath. With Lutetia well defended, it looks like Vercingetorix could feasibly swing some troops right into the German core if he retakes Vienna. Still hard to say who this war favors just yet though, as the German resource bank off camera to the east is reasonably extensive. The fact they're losing the naval war isn't convincing though. I'm pretty sure it's the Dogger Bank anyway. I've never listened to the shipping forecast, but my mother has a map of the areas on her kitchen wall. Don't ask. Anyway, it looks like a bit of a rough and tumble scrap as nobody has anything better than triremes, making this basically a slap fight. It's not great for our current top Europeans though. Also off camera, Uzbekistan captures Kars and immediately made peace with Georgia, as did Finland, who were at war with Georgia. Wild. Losing these 3 cities has really hurt Bhutan, as they've made like a zip file and have compressed into a very narrow empire with strong civs on all sides. This has also really depleted their northern carpet, and whilst they can probably reinforce from the many composite bowmen that they have we've seen in their core, you feel that any of their neighbors could take what they pleased right now. In the sidebar, a capital flips and I can reveal it's Jerusalem being recaptured at present, whilst Awolowo builds a cute military wonder in Alhambra. Mansur Shah continues his Indonesian invasion with the capture of Wuhu and its 2-tile island, as units from all over the cylinder are lost in the archipelago. Anangu warriors, Japanese catapults, Zanzibar triremes, and one that might even belong to Peru-Bolivia are all floating around, minding their own business as the Moluccans continue to dominate the region. Manangu smolders, but it looks like Gran Colombia can defend the city for now. With his Panamanian outpost secured then, Simón Bolívar turns his baleful eye on the most insulting of Jamaican cities, Montego Bay. Purple troops begin flooding in from Bogota and across Lake Maracaibo. I'm not sure if Jamaica will be able to outlast the assault, but they have prepared a settler to maybe escape if things get desperate. Down at the Cape of Good Hope, we're greeted by a swath of Alani horsemen just lurking off the coast. Meanwhile, in Namibia, the unanimous most boring civ of the last episode are still just existing. Lesotho, on the other hand, has reinforced its core and built a pretty hefty navy. I don't think this is quite the way we thought Southern Africa would go, but I'm definitely enjoying it. Jerusalem has continued to flip for a while now, with the Ptolemies' naval advantage allowing them to keep the city zeroed, but their lack of land troops preventing them from holding it. Things may change now, however, as Tripoli has fallen, massively reducing Jerusalem's ability to reinforce their capital, especially with the Kurdish border limiting their supply line from Acre. With the capture, Cleopatra has also nabbed some more legions, always a fun little bonus. Zaire has surrounded Rehoboth as it appears that Jacob Marenga's battered empire will be reduced even further. Mobutu just has so much more firepower to bring to bear, and it certainly appears like sub-Saharan Africa will end up being fought out between him and Moshoshu I. I can see Rehoboth flipping a few times, but it's just not really a great time for the Namibians at all. Uzbekistan and all Russia have made peace, hopefully reducing the overall chaos of Central Asia and the steppes. The Bhutanese partition is yet to be resolved and tidied up, and the same with Beira, but those are problems for another day. The white line of Parg Settles still looks vulnerable though, even as another is founded in Tiumen. Perhaps a Yuan will take it up. Sparks continue to fly as two of the cylinder's greatest war machines clash, but it appears that it's Germany who's been worn down more. Poland is almost completely empty as Vienna is surrounded and deep in the red. With Cenabum almost raised, if Vienna does flip, then Western Europe will look very radically different in the blink of an eye. Up in Nunavut, we see that the neutral Icelandic war has petered out, with just one archer continuing the fight. The Dene have settled Gameti, right in the middle of the Icelandic line of conquered cities, and with the way Christian has been playing, I'd not be surprised to see him add it to his collection. Regardless, he's sent a settler over to continue their colonization of Vinland. In terms of the sidebar, a few people dogpiled on Jerusalem, and Uzbekistan also made peace with Yuan, but the Welsh hate train is slowing. In the latest installment of the Polynesian Poke Fest, once more Tahiti tries to claim Waikiki. As has been mentioned, Lily is basically refusing to build naval units, which is unhelpful for an island civ. Fortunately for her, Tahiti are basically entirely toothless right now, and her melee army are probably enough to defend for the time being. I'm sure Piraeus will eventually claim Hawaii if she doesn't die first. In perhaps the pinnacle of the Gran Colombia redemption arc, they take Montego Bay and fully secure the lands that were promised them. It's not been an easy road, dropping to dead last in the power rankings, but Simón Bolívar has done it. Even if the city flips a few times, we can still say that we were here when our bad guy turned sad guy became a glad guy. As you can probably also see, the Marajoara captured Aquilente, Aquatelne. That's one. Perhaps they'll build the Caribbean to rival the New Netherlands. Jerusalem has capitulated and Baldwin has given over Ascalon in the deal. I'm not sure whether Cleo will be happy about this, frankly. It's surrounded by Hejaz, who just declared war on Jerusalem to boot, and she has no way to reinforce it. Why are there always Middle Eastern exclaves? But claiming Jerusalem for the Ptolemies is a massive win, no matter how you look at it, especially with Tripoli as well. Pour one out for Hussein bin Ali, though, who probably thought he could nab a free city. Vienna falls, although, spoilers, it'll flip back immediately, and all of a sudden Germany looks a lot weaker. They've only got a couple of melee units, and though their navy is making inroads to Britain, I doubt the Gallic archers will permit any kind of snipery. Wilhelm will have to play this incredibly well to not lose this ground against his current biggest rival. Cullen have settled the North Island with my new favorite city name of Narnargoon, and wow, that's fun to say. They've also settled Tarned on Tasmania and have a navy poking at Tahiti cities on the South Island. It's looking pretty good for William Barak at this point. I still pray for the day we properly get a super expansive South Pacific civ who can actively challenge Australia though. In the sidebar, the Manchu and Laos declare on Vietnam. This could be quite dicey for Uncle Ho. Rehoboth flips over to Zaire, and whilst Namibia can probably aggress onto it, looking at those reinforcements in the Congo, I doubt it'll be blue for long, if at all. The real question now, I guess, is whether Mobutu is satisfied. Gibeon and Kachanas are probably within reach if he decides to hard commit. Vienna has flipped again, but this time the Gauls look to have it secured. A mass cavalry engagement is going down east of Lutetia as Wilhelm is throwing everything at the east, abandoning his Swedish territories for the time being. So far, it looks like a massive win for Vercingetorix, especially if Vienna comes with those citadels now. With Taiping having locked down Hanoi, Laos are trying to push into Saigon to finally end their annoying neighbors. Being forced through that narrow channel will probably hurt Fangnam's chances though. Meanwhile, Bhutan and Uzbekistan make peace, and as you can see on the mini-map, Islam manages to grab Paro, a major city, in the deal. He then proceeds to burn it down. You do you, Karamov. Exclaves galore in Amazonia right now, with Paraguay, the Mapuche, and Gran Colombia all trying to snap up territory. Peru, Bolivia, meanwhile, are taking snapshots of Maracaibo, seeing if they can steal it away, whilst Simón is occupied with Jamaica. Peru, Bolivia are still protected by the Andes at present, which is likely the only reason one of their neighbors hasn't been able to get in there yet. As it always seems to be with the Andean Civ, it'll just be a matter of time before indirect fire arrives. So, this is an interesting play to be sure. Germany declares on Iceland, whilst already at war with the Gauls, as we know. Essen is undefended and should be an easy target for Iceland, with a Scandinavian snipe also potentially on the cards. It's genuinely one of the most bizarre AI decisions I've seen. Good luck, Wilhelm, I guess. The Barents Sea and surrounding territory is another spot of contested borders and confusion. Another Georgian exclave is snugly fitted between the USSR and Perm, having been entirely surrounded by snow settles, such as the ironic Baku on the Murmansk Peninsula. This encroachment has also affected Finland, with Mannerheim too now penned in on all sides. That said, he's a lot more equipped to deal with any Russian aggression, having built up a solid army. Any conflict here should see multiple cities fall, but we don't want to get too hopeful too soon. I randomly happen to know a decent amount about Saltillo, purely because it was a town an artist I was researching lived and ultimately died in. William Townley Benson, look him up, is a tragic figure. Nevertheless, it's still firmly Mississippian at the present time, although those other two Rio Grande cities are surprisingly well set up and defended. It'll be interesting when these two heavyweights fight once more. Pain. Agony. Tanaka Kakue's hatred will burn in the cavernous depths of his black heart within his tiny empire. Why? Since Pereira's settle on the Pitcairns has prevented his own, presumably to have been on Easter Island. The voyage of the Japanese settler is one we've watched eagerly, only to have our hopes dashed by Pereira as they approached their end goal. Now two triremes gaze sadly across the pink borders to their isolated escort. Shame on you, Tahiti. Shame. Tongchang falls down south as Taiping's Philippine and Indonesian settles are all but entirely painted over by Malacca. Even now, a fleet swings north to harass Chengpu, and Shouzu looks undesirably weak, especially with that tech disadvantage. It's looking worse and worse. Far from a fight back, the Olmecs have collapsed, and Quetzalcoatlus dips into the red with no signs of sanctity anywhere. The lack of a navy is really hurting them. There may be a glimmer of hope, though, in that there's only 2 melee units in range. That won't stop Rio Grande for long, however. Things have settled down in northern Caribbean now, with Montego Bay flipping by itself and Aquitaine both reasonably secure as opposing forces peter out. Jamaica aren't in a great position right now, although they do have a settler out which could potentially pull them out of the city-state tier. Marajoara having their own island city could be a good chance for them to push out of South America. Overall, this has definitely been the least predictable Caribbean we've ever seen. Wow, the citadeling of Hafnarfjordur is unbelievable. What did Christian do to the Gauls to deserve that? A settler is being sent north from Condeficum, coincidentally settled exactly where I'm writing this from IRL. I'm nowhere near that, but cool. And I think there might be a space to settle where it's sat right now. Otherwise, the Gallic Navy in the North Sea is just about gone. but Germany poking at Condate is it's as ineffective as I'd predicted. We see Toypurina declare on Ukixchan in the sidebar as well, as things couldn't get any worse for the Olmecs. Being stuck in the middle is never fun, especially if you're forebears. All three of the affiliated tribes' neighbors have settlers who will likely close off the little unoccupied space they might have been able to claim, if they even want to, given the Chinook edging ever closer. Bottle Creek from the Mississippi is the latest example of this, as the last open spaces in the world are steadily plugged. There's not really that much to say about the Gauls-Germany war that I've not said already. Vienna is looking solidly Gaulish, and the knights around Lutetia will make Germany's horsemen hard-pressed to find value. Essen has basically just been a tasty snack for the Icelandic Navy for a little while, and they're definitely hungry as they surround Wilhelm's Shetland outpost. Given how vulnerable Stettin looks right now as well, this could be a very fortunate turn of events for Christian. There's another lovely city name for the books as New Netherlands settle the House of Good Hope on Newfoundland. Marcus Garvey, of all people, declares on Iceland now. I guess they've racked up some serious Diplo penalties since it seems way out of proportion. They've just fought normal battles from my eye test. Reykjavik certainly looks healthy though. No wonder it's become an esports hub in our world. Laos have got themselves decent covering fire, and at the very least they should be able to comfortably prevent Vietnam from pushing out of Saigon. You'd hope they're capable of more than that, however. Meanwhile, Malacca's tidal tyranny seems to have been stymied at last by Taiping, and unseen is a good notification for Sweden, peace with Iceland and the Vandals. It's an all-green affair still as the Gauls half-heartedly poke away at Kasnuid. Llewellyn really hasn't got much left in the tank, and if those triremes were ranged ships, you can be sure he'd be at death's door. Fortunately for our British fans, that's not the case, but it's another sorry showing from the Isles in a Royale. Cenabum has been resettled in Cumbria, too. In perhaps one of the most pointless exchanges of the season, the Dene and Iceland are fighting over Kiatoa and Gameti. Their respective navies can't reach the other city due to the ice, and neither seems fussed about invading over land. I'm pretty sure they'll just swap hands and at least restore some border order. Is it gonna happen? Surely not. The Cullen declare on Malacca and dive straight for Taranganu. As far as I can tell, Malacca still have a slight tech lead, but their navy is somewhat dispersed right now. With how vulnerable some of those Indonesian cities are right now, my personal opinion is that 3 coast tiles is required for the AI to consistently capture a city. Maybe William Barak has a chance to do some damage to the scourge of the small isles and break the Australian curse. A few Icelandic troops are kicking about on the Atlantic coast, but aside from that, things are just peachy in New Netherlandish Georgia and Florida. For a colonial civ, they've done a good job ticking off all the traditional American colony locations: New England, Florida, Cuba, and now they're working on Mexico and Central America. Real 17th century goals, folks. Australia is often a gift in the CBR. A huge swath of land promised to one of the handful of civs, but then one that's often impossible to escape from. The Cullen have a mighty core, but the same was said of Hawke and Parkes before him. They've got some solid coastal cities, but also haven't yet terraformed the outback, and Immerring and Tajananong both seem to have very high defense values for the time. Maybe William Barak does know something we don't. And there it is. Quetzalcoatlus falls and the Olmec government flees to Tonala. Antonio Canales Rocio now has both his first original capital and a monopoly on the Gulf of Mexico. It'll be interesting to see where both these civs go from here. Rio Grande will have to fight through one of the other Northern American monoliths, whilst time will tell if the Olmecs have to find a way to survive. Given Gran Colombia's aggressive citadel policy to the southeast and their relative lack of expansion, it may be hard for them to do so. The war in the Pacific has been burning slowly, possibly since the Cullen's eyes are currently to the north, but given this huge tech disparity between themselves and Tahiti, You'd think that as soon as William Barak decides he wants Pora Pora and Raiatea, they're his. Frankly, I'm not sure what Tahiti could have done better aside from be even more expansive, but they've hardly slouched and are up to a decent enough city count. Sadly, decent doesn't win you a CBR. Kingston starts to take damage for the first time in a long while, even as a Jamaican settler appears to race a Colombian one for a spot on Hispaniola. I'm not sure where the damage came from, as given who's around it, could even be Iceland. That'd be a twist and a half, but even with those triremes, it's a fanciful idea at best. The reports came in all at once to Honolulu. Marvelous ships capable of crossing even the deepest ocean, supporting great war carracks. They flew a flag from the far north, that of the Chukchi. They brought with them the thunder of war. Honestly, if the Chukchi commit to this war, they have such a huge tech and unit advantage, and I think I could very easily clean a Hawaiian Fa'a'a to boot. We'll see whether that happens, however. Caravels are nevertheless a welcome sight on the cylinder, as is another Japanese settler. Let's see where this one goes. Not insignificant pieces made between Bolivar and Solano Lopez in the sidebar. The Vandals have crossed the Atlantic and have found the Quilombo dos Palomares less than friendly, given how relatively well the African civs are doing with ocean sips and crossing, as seen by Nigeria's settler. A concerted effort could see our first Atlantic struggle where Africa are the aggressors of the adventurous buccaneers in Mark II. Regardless, the Palmares and the Marajawara make peace to address this new threat. I guess you have to warm yourself up somehow in the frigid north. Acid and burns, and frankly, there's no way Wilhelm can save it, even with that hastily reorganized navy off of Norway. Well done, Christian, I suppose, meeting all of our expectations. What happens next, however, is the important bit. The Olmecs and Rio Grande peace out, potentially buying Ukixchan some time to plan his next move. Well then, is this now definitely the most pointless conflict in the CBR? I'd say so. The Dene have done a decent job at trying to recapture Gameti, but it looks like it'll still be razed to ash. Meanwhile, Iceland have settled Selfoss on what I think is meant to be the tip of Baffin Island. I've always wanted to explore rural Nunavut. Sadly, my favorite island, Ellesmere, isn't on this map. Also, the Gauls and Wales make peace. Llewellyn will live on yet. I don't believe it. How? Simon Bolivar, how are you so useless? Forget the chip damage on Kingston. You've had another settler captured by Jamaica in the same game. Oh, I am so disappointed. You could have had a Caribbean colony, but oh no, you send a settler sans escort and it gets gobbled up by a swordsman. You absolute donkey of a supreme liberator. Nevertheless, aside from Jamaica being handed a free out, they've been kicked off the continent and back into the rapidly filling island chains. Maybe we'll need Iceland to intervene after all, especially if Marcus Garvey can keep making peace with people. The parkour is quite satisfying in a sense. Almost every city being connected by a road is lovely. I assume Kolchak has a mega high infrastructure bias, which would be entirely in character. I wonder if anybody could make a good parody of Lobachevsky based around all Russia though. We've already got Omsk and Tomsk as a free start. Glazov and Saratov and Tobolsk and Orolsk make half rhymes. It's possible. At least it's not entirely filled with catapults anymore. The Great Bhutanese narrowing seems to have reached its zenith with the cession of Paro as its massively embellished Jigme's carpet, condensing it into a much smaller empire. They're bookended by the Chola, which might be a place for Bhutan to start making a comeback. I mean, the VOC have more naval units around their colonies than they do their own. Fighting up a tech differential is definitely possible, I guess. That's the best sugarcoating I can do for now. Lautaro settles both the Falklands and Los Estados, locking up the South American naval game for now. Amaro is still an eyesore for us map fans, but the Mapuche are an interesting conundrum. A medium-strength civ who seem to have all the right biases together, but hamstrung by good settles further north. Honestly, it reminds me of the Selknam if Uruguay hadn't happened. Some relevant notifications on the side though. Germany and the Gauls make peace with Vienna in green, and the Chukchi reopen the Manchu War. And just like that, 2 cities are gone. Tragic. Iceland resolves to throw a horseman at Quinatotua in frustration, and the Dene go home. War. What is it good for? The Chukchi fleet, supplemented by additional amphibious troops thanks to the Itsukushima Shrine, floods down towards Korea. They've not got much space due to Japan, but with such a ridiculous tech advantage, surely they can get something done here. Girin doesn't have walls, and not even a cool citadel can save the Manchu now. Peru-Bolivia, the Mad Lads, manage it. They whisk away Maracaibo from under Simon Bolivar's nose and increase their empire by 50%. Thanks to the Paraguay-Gran Colombia peace, Bolivar will also have a hard time getting units over there to retake it. Very well played by Santa Cruz. We'll have to see how long it lasts, though. Conducho is almost surrounded, but the neutrals are pumping out war bands like there's no tomorrow. Pretty apt response in my book. Mosfalsberg is under fire, so it depends whether Peter Stuyvesant is willing to let Soharison have it in exchange for a capital, or if he's only in war for outright gains. Malacca have hit their unique unit, and the Jongs are aptly in the South China Sea. Well, there's 2 of them. That should be more than enough to take Shozhou, though, as Mansur Shah already begins to pile damage onto the city. Taiping have almost given up their southward dreams, it seems, as they settle Chengtang further north, where it'll hopefully be safe. Hopefully. Terengganu is Terengganu, as the Kulins smash it to pieces and burn what's left. More Zhang action down here as Mansur Shah sends his navy to try and keep the Australians out of his new back garden. Meanwhile, we've got a rump-off in TAT versus Olmecs, and 2 cross-continental pieces, Laos Ptolemies and Hawaii Vandals. I'm sure some ambassadors were very upset. Death in Paradise is a fantastic show, actually, and I would recommend it. Maybe Lilo Okolani should take a break from whatever her entertainment of choice is, however, and actually defend her capital. Latwalan's navy have blasted it to half health in no time at all, and Hawaii really don't seem to be bothered. The Chukchi are also sending a settler over, not really looking good for our Polynesian friends. The Vandals are walloping the Palmares navy right now, but I'm not sure if they'll be able to take Macaco. I guess we'll see, but this at least answers the question of what the Vandals are doing next after their European endeavors. The Palmares have also been impeded a bit by a lovely citadel from Bichos. Well played, Pakue. A handful of Finnish Lutherans observe the naval mess that is Iceland versus Germany. Germany have actually got the numbers advantage right now, and it looks like they'll be able to keep Iceland away from Stettin after all. Peace with the Gauls has likely done a lot for Wilhelm's chances. The Tongva have been relatively quiet for a while, but they've filled in their empire with a few cities and avoided war with their likely stronger neighbors. Unfortunately, they're not particularly technological nor naval, so they can't cash in on the Hawaii situation. Honolulu is in the red and looks poised to fall. Excellent, excellent tactical play from the Chukchi so far. Mosfalsberg flips to the neutrals, nice, and it looks like Conducho has actually recovered. So Harrison has got away with a blinder here, it seems, as no New Netherlands' troops seem to be within recapturing range of the city. Mabila seems like a trap, meanwhile, designed to bait hungry minor powers into a folly war with the Mississippi, which Tuscaloosa can then capitalize on. We see through your ruse, my friend. We see. There's an uprising in Karakorum as Northern Yuan are discontent and barbarian swordsmen are spawning in response to Mandukai's rule. Maybe they've seen how she's doing in the power rankings. They seem to have a classic case of Snoryak syndrome, yet they are filling out their core and are still statistically strong. At this point, they could still miraculously win from nowhere, but anything short of rampant success would be very much deemed disappointing. Now would be the best time with a unique trebuchet, the Hui Hui Pao, hopefully leading to many siege units being built. Jamaica have left the City-State Club, of which they were so briefly a member, and managed to found such an incomprehensibly vulnerable city that I'm still in shock. Marcus Garvey, if you're reading this, please stop hinting so hard. Now yes, we did predict you as last, but that was a guess. You don't get a medal for a bigger number. Anyway, the new Netherlands Island Empire is quite cute now. We can look at it. That's what Jamaica could have been. Laos and the Chola are at war. Don't worry if you couldn't tell, you're forgiven. For a civ at war with two of their land neighbors, they've been very inactive and unimpressive. As I said earlier, the VOC are mounting a more impressive naval invasion of Urayur, whilst at peace with Raja Raja, a travesty of an AI you are, Fagnyam. Also, clearly Uzbekistan hasn't got an if player is human check on its gameplay alert messages, as we find out the Civ's UA is working properly. So you're a tough Gwei, like it really rough Gwei. Thank you, Billie Eilish. You're no longer needed here. Solano Lopez's empire isn't quite the all-out chaos fest we expected, but honestly, that might be a good thing. Paraguay have a chunky core, well carpeted, and honestly, they could take chunks out of anyone around them. Those exclaves to the northeast aren't the best defended, but honestly, shouldn't even factor into Solano's plans right now. I love Paraguay with a passion, and I'm very excited to see how they do, given they've survived the early game, which is usually their downfall because of excessive warmongering. A stable Gwei is a strong Gwei. Can we nerf Malacca? This is just unfair. They roll through Shozhou with barely a brief pause for us to catch our breath, and now have melee units beside Qingpu. Honestly, this is one of the best dismantling of an empire I've ever seen in the CBR, and it feels like it should be up there with the Boers versus Ethiopia in Mark II for sheer ruthless efficiency. None of these cities have even flipped back, for God's sake. Of course, the real challenge will be a land war. Malacca, to my knowledge, are yet to capture an inland city. Crushing. That's what this image is. Honolulu in the deep red, and the Chukchi without a melee unit to capture it. Honestly, Tahiti could probably snipe the city if they had any form of initiative. Lily is the luckiest leader right now, and it's not even close. On the continent, so Harrison and Four Bears makes peace. Another war closed out for the beleaguered TAT. Poor Nurhaci. Mukden has been citadeled to oblivion, and the Chukchi's open borders with Japan, something I'd not noticed earlier, have given them easy access through Yokohama, which the Manchu can't reciprocate. Whether they can force their way to the capital over land is one thing, but that fleet of caravels looks set on Hiran. It's quite a shame that we've not had a chance to see the Manchu get up to full strength. Feels like they've been hamstrung from day one. Well, it looks like Egypt's already attracting tourists. Bob Breer would be proud of the Burkinabe soldiers holidaying in Ptolemy lands, which are looking reasonably impressive, I might add. Couple of huge cities, good breadth. What more could you want right now? Their navy isn't half bad either, although the current Sicilian armada is frankly terrifying in the north. With Rehoboth pretty firmly in Zaire's hands, the war seems to have been fought to a stalemate. Mobutu seems to be redistributing his forces up north, so perhaps Jacob Marenga has an opportunity to strike back? Or even Lesotho could dismantle them both, right? Southern Africa is certainly not decided by any means yet. In the sidebar, some interesting wars. Japan, Sweden, and the Vandals all declare on northern Yuan. Seems they've had enough of boring Siberian civs, too. Ukix-chan has decided to try and take the initiative, as we've seen elsewhere, and make a play for Peter Stuyvesant's Caribbean holdings. Unfortunately, he sent out a very disorganized, spread-out fleet, which the new Netherlandish Navy will have no problem negating. To the east, I can't believe it, May Pen is under siege by Icelandic triremes. Screw it, I want this to happen now. Would serve you right, Garvey. The relatively recent settle of Kodv is under attack, and Mandukai isn't doing much about it. Well then, the Osakan government have pulled off a masterstroke here, whilst their home office in Tokyo are busy sending settlers halfway across the world, and declaring war on the Manchu. Silly things like that. The city is surrounded and they expect it'll fall in very short order, but whether the northern Yuan will strike back is the big question. Also, the Chukchi have long swords. Scary. Chaos in the near Pacific as ships of all sides slug it out. I assume this is mostly Hawaii versus somebody now destroyed, the Chukchi, Tahiti, but it looks interesting at least. Meanwhile, Malacca are repairing their new takings and have resettled Terengganu following its razing by the Cullen. Also, the eagle-eyed amongst you might have spotted that the new Bera was captured by Parg off-screen earlier this turn. Helpful for mapmakers, at least. Well, then this happened. What I wrote off as frustration has turned into military success as Iceland capture and raze Quinatatua. Whilst in practice, this will probably just mean the Mississippi will settle somewhere around there with that settler. Iceland's scarily competent military is a sight to behold. Maybe it's just an Iceland thing. Also, Somalia is mass declared on by Uzbekistan, Nigeria, and the VOC. I take that back. Germany swipe Helsingborg from under Christian's nose with a handful of triremes, and whilst I get the city is super exposed to naval assault, you just can't be letting this happen. I doubt the city holds, but it looks like the Faroe distraction might let Germany resettle the Shetlands, meaning this has been a net win for Wilhelm. Shocking. Also, Sweden and Kosovo make peace with Georgia. It's not been shown, but Mesquita has flipped a total of 20 times this episode. 20. It ends up in Kosovo colors. Every time I think I've seen the best Cullen city name, they found another cracker. Uri Yaluk is incredible, but it's the Navy that are really doing work as Cullen and Tahitian fleets meet in the ocean beside Sanjo, the long-heralded Japanese outpost. On the topic of settling, Tahiti look like they're about to found a city. This seems like a terrible idea given how imminent their total naval collapse seems, but hey, YOLO. The Grand Colombians aren't happy with Peru-Bolivia for stealing away Maracaibo, and they're here to take it back, which shouldn't take too long, frankly, given there's just the two comp bowmen defending it. You tried, Andres, you tried. Elsewhere, Masfos Bear flips once. Well, maybe Tokyo's anti-Manchu policy has some merit. In tandem with the Chukchi, Girin has been stripped of naval shielding and has taken about a third in damage. The Manchu aren't rolling over at least, and have got a solid fleet in the Korean Strait, as well as following up the God Citadel with another one next to it. They're also about to kill that Japanese settler, but it's possible that Girin might finally unite the Japanese Empire, allowing the big-brained Osakans to help run the country. And just like that, Kadv is Japanese, another victory for the Osakan Empire. The Northern Yuan army, rather than aggress into Japan for their trespasses, have actually regressed into their empire as well. I'm genuinely unsure how or why Mandukai is playing like this. It's simply irredeemable. Anyway, their loss is Japan's gain, who are turning out to be quite the plucky non-quitter. There's the all-Russian-occupied Bera I mentioned earlier, as well as the new city of Bekabad on the ruins of Kars. This loss might be entirely inconsequential to Punjab, but it seems likely that they really wanted to keep it based on that force around Qasr, which was presumably booted out of Uzbekistan when an open border deal ended. In the sidebar, Hejaz and Lesotho have made peace. It's always nice remembering which random civs are at war. Alberti has compiled his life's work, and truly we are blessed to see which civs are the pointiest. Given that 2 of the top 5 are at war, we're in for a treat. Nigeria and 2 Sicilies in 2nd and 3rd is quite a surprise, however, and are definitely ones to watch for the next while if they've got this much to bring to bear. Otherwise, the rest of the top 8, Vandals, Uzbeks, Chukchi, and Gauls, are pretty much expected. Malacca simply can't get enough. Qingpu, the last of Taiping's Southeast Asian settles, is under siege and again will likely fall. I'm genuinely out of superlatives for how well this has been done. In the sidebar, there's a lot going on though. Zaire, Kosovo, and Nigeria all declare on the Chola, but more importantly, they're joined by 2 others, Bhutan and Malacca themselves. Well, that's a sight to knock the wind right out of any Cullen fan's sails. Kularu is taking damage as Malacca counterattacks hard with Jongs. Borneo is such a fortress for Malacca now, and with 4 big ports they can probably churn out ships much faster than William Barak can. We can also check in with the Anangu, who've been citadel chained a little, but it's nice to see them alive. Things get even worse for the Manchu as Yuan pincer them with a swift declaration of war. They also declare on northern Yuan at the same time, which is a decision, to be sure. As of right now, though, Mukden is under siege, as is Aigun. We might be about to see a quick relegation of the Manchu to rump status, even if they do manage to settle Japan. After a well-fought war, it looks like the neutrals have managed to hold off the New Netherlands. Kanducho and Masvosberg are both recovering, and it seems like the bleeding is very much stemmed. This might be due to the fact that they've grabbed another musketman from somewhere, which is concerning. Maybe this slot is cursed with bugs. I think this is the largest Tahiti's military has been, honestly. Mahatia is defended, but whether this will stop the Kulin is anyone's guess. I vote probably not. Tahiti have another settler out, which is something, and I guess they're doing better than Hawaii. Not really a high bar. Add the South Pacific to my list of regions I really want to see be competitive, alongside Britain and Central America. On the topic of the Americas, Lautaro declares on Peru-Bolivia. This could go somewhere, actually. It's not really a betrayal, to be honest, if you've been at war before. Orayur is finally taking damage, no thanks to Laos, as Bhutanese troops flood over to it. Malacca haven't turned up yet, so maybe Jigme has a chance to grab some cities before Mansur, Destroyer of Worlds Shah, gets in on the action. On the other hand, the Chola have a decent land army and are starting to head towards Fengsholing. Bhutan might actually be in a little trouble if they don't make gains fast. Malacca simply don't miss, is the thing. Qingpu falls, and the army around it is breathtaking. They declare on Hejaz, apparently just because they felt like it. Whatever makes you happy, Mansur. That said, Taiping might have a shot at retaking Shouzu if they can get those units onto Hainan. Meanwhile, the Chola and Laos make peace. God damn it, Laos. Well, that makes no sense. Cleopatra declares on Hejaz as well, and Ptolemaic troops flood across the Red Sea, hell-bent on dismantling their Arabian neighbors. Ascalon might fall, but I don't think Cleo cares right now. Interestingly, Hejaz have got basically no foot archers right now, which will make things harder, especially with Mecca and Al-Kinfada already citadeled. Those cavalry units have a hell of a job. Garrisoning cities on the edge of the ice really doesn't sound like a great gig, especially if you'll be eating chilled venison for the next ever. I'm surprised Elephant and Coronation Islands didn't go over to the Mapuche, honestly. At least this makes the race for South Georgia mildly interesting. What a time we live in. Alright, seriously, what are the Northern Yuan doing? Yuan cavalry detachment slides straight in the border to harass Bayan Tumen, entirely uncontested, and still Mandukai does nothing? I'm mauling so hard watching this right now. I don't know what mauling means. I'm assuming that's a euphemism of some kind. I can only hope the Northern Yuan army is currently marching on Kodv. Please, let it be true. Maracaibo may have flipped back to PB, but that's not the real story here. Tacna is taking damage as a massive Mapuche force assaults Santa Cruz's capital. It's not looking good for Andres right now, as he's got no navy to speak of and a hilariously outdated army. Ha 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 ha. Peru-Bolivia have long had the worst stats of anyone, but not like it's really hitting home as they collapse like a lonely, rain-soaked cardboard box. It seems like the Manchu have somehow held off the initial wave of assaults. Girin has been starved out and is at half health, but Mukden is undamaged, and if Nurhaci can only lose Aigun right now, it'd be a huge result. The only flaw with this plan is the fact that Chukchi and Japanese reinforcements alike are streaming down from the north. The Chukchi also have their unique unit up and running and on the front lines where they'll just farm XP from enemies in this type of war. Still anyone's game in Korea though. This might be the longest "no you" in history. Wilhelm has gathered a huge army off the Norwegian coast, and even though Helsingborg is low, Iceland is very depleted. Wilhelm's move of bypassing Shetland with that settler is certainly a unique one, however, and I'm not sure what he hopes to achieve. Then again, given the way this war has gone, maybe I'm in no place to question German strategic choices. Also, the Marajawara, Olmec, and Vandal Tahiti wars come to a close. Kesha probably never thought she'd be invoked to describe the Malaysian invasion of indigenous Australia, but hey, that's the CBR for you. I'll skip on my usual Malacca praise and just say it how it is. It looks like Mansur Shah might unironically capture a major Kulin city. The Kulin fleet is all but flotsam, and there are Jongs coming from all angles to join the fight. Wow is all I can really say. I just want to make note that the slide is titled, Like We're Gonna Die Jong. Get it? Kesha, that's what he was going for. A war of two halves, at least for now. Ascalon is surrounded and about to fall, but Al-Qunfada is also being beaten with trebuchet payloads. The naval and land wars should be firmly in Cleo's favor, with long swords now available to her also. Whilst we might not see immediate dividends for the Ptolemies, it'd be a good bet for the near future. Iceland reclaim Helsingborg as Germany taunt them with 2 settlers. Sweden meanwhile settle Sigtuna and Svalbard in hopes of magically spawning some Panzerbjorn to help them win. Actually, there's no Civ mod based off of his Dark Materials, which is surprising. Honestly, I've no idea who's winning this war. I think it's Germany, but it's just a mess of triremes and embarked units. Right now, all that's happened is Germany have lost a city that they really didn't need anyway. Iceland make peace with Jamaica without capturing May Pen. Sad. If there's a breeze, consider that my, and maybe everyone else's, massive size of relief as the neutral musketman is destroyed in the recapture of Mossvalsberg. The New Netherlands have also settled Barende Gat to fill out their empire too, even if Mossvalsberg doesn't hold. This war has overall just seriously drained both Civ's resources and allowed Iceland and the Mississippi to do whatever they want in the background. But hey, who has time for that when your lifelong rivals are right there? In a move which will shock nobody, the Olmecs failed to make an impression on the new Netherlandish Caribbean. I've only just noticed, but both Cuban cities are canals, which is pretty damn cool. I'm not sure how long it'll be before Ukixchen gets another chance to strike out, or if it'll even happen, especially as Rio Grande look to have resupplied very efficiently. There you have it, friends. Mansur Shah captures Coolaroo, and all William Barak's worst nightmares come true. Even if it flips back, that's 14 population down the gutter, and Kulin Pride obliterated to ashes on the shoreline. What an episode from Malacca. Unbelievable MVP. What better way to take out your self-hatred than by beating the ever-loving snot out of a minor civ? The Kulin bring Mehatias to half rapidly, even if Tahiti have mustered a kind of defensive line. I doubt we'll see Fa'a'a-esque hold here, though. Sanjo, meanwhile, is growing nicely for our Japan fans out there. With Nemetosena and Sedongnan filling in the empire, Gaul is a sight to behold, even without factoring in their British holdings. Whilst that German citadel outside of Vienna is a statement of intent, if I've ever seen one, I think it's safe to say that Vercingetorix is currently the foremost power in Europe. Definitely an MVP runner-up after Malacca in terms of the episode. Tacna is in the red, and the Mapuche are poised to deal the killer blow. Lima might last longer, but honestly it doesn't look like there's any way Andres and Peru-Bolivia get out of this, one barring miracle diplomacy. Even then, they're at war with Bolivar as well, Maracaibo is still 1 HP, and Paraguay are starting to loom to the east too. Forget artillery, turns out all it took to fell the Andes was a navy. As Nigeria quietly settles St. Helena and enter the race for South Georgia, Zaire and Gibeon clash around the coast of Gibeon. The border has remilitarized and it looks like a stalemate for now, but it's a good sign that neither civ is currently satisfied, at least for us, the bloodthirsty sub-audience. Surely Malacca can't push further. Chengtang might be doable, but I really doubt they can get into Yong'an and Anqing simply due to the geography. They've held off the Shozhou recapture fleet and flipped Kularu back once since we last saw them, and the only question I have left is when they'll kill the VOC. Taiping, though, should keep Hanoi, so it's not like they've been left toothless. Hell, if they went after the Manchu, they'd probably steal a few cities. Good luck is all I can say to Llewellyn. The Gauls and Spain redeclare on him, and the death counter has begun. How long it takes is up in the air, but I've got a feeling that this is the end for Wales. It's been a good... Actually, no, it's not. It's been a terrible, terrible run, and I'm ashamed of Wales. They settled entirely away from their accessible land and got cut up. Now they get to die slowly in Ireland, a fate I'd wish on nobody. Now that is what we like to see. Clean aim, steady hands, and a beautiful snipe as Paraguay steal away Tacna from the Mapuche. Maracaibo also falls, and in a turn, Peru, Bolivia are down to one city. The fact that Paraguay and the Mapuche also have open borders is even better for Solano Lopez, as it means any Diplo hits might not come into effect for a while. Commiserations for Lautaro, but its one rival almost entirely neutered nevertheless. Back in the north, the Mississippi are about to drop 2 settles now the last 3 cities have been destroyed. Whilst we won't see them, I can confirm they do so, and the more northern will be Mound Bottom with Long Swamp to the south. Lovely places, I presume. We have a couple of peace deals too, Zaire and Somalia, Chola and Hejaz, and Olmec and the affiliated tribes. Wait, it can't be. Oh my gosh, it is. Northern Yuan are doing something, and what's more, it's effective. That Yuan force has been quashed, and they've pushed back into Kaifeng. Perhaps that is the start of something special. Meanwhile, one more peace for the turn as Paraguay secure Tacna thanks to a quick peace deal with Peru, Bolivia. Giron is aflame and will be nothing but ash shortly. Meanwhile, the new city of Elan Hala is in the red, and Aigun looks to be the same. Looks like no salvation came for Nohachi, and the only thing which might preserve Elan Hala might be if Japan can't get through Taiping. It's been a rough one for the Manchu, that's for sure. There's also a couple of more pieces, with the Chukchi ending hostility with Vietnam and Malacca with Chola. As predicted, Al-Confidha and Ascalon change hands, with the former reuniting Ptolemies to the rest of the Ptolemaic Empire. Mecca is under threat now as well, and it's definitely all coming up Cleopatra right now. Hejaz look to have a really sparse inland navy, and a horde of foreign ops really won't prevent the collapse of Hussein bin Ali's empire. The Bab al-Mandab Strait is also probably going to prevent Al-Qunfida being flipped back, especially with that one coast tile making it very difficult regardless. Uzbekistan have really filled out the East Caspian fantastically, with 5 cities founded this episode alone. Meanwhile, Georgia have hit their unique unit, and Kurdistan have some units about the place. The Uzbeks also have the small issue of unhappiness to consider, with their expansion clearly not backed up by resource or building boons. I doubt 2 dissident knights will cause much trouble for now, especially given Islam Karamov's massive military, but it's never a good sign, especially since it'll likely lead to future raising. Oh, Tinhanan, what have you done? The Tuareg declare on Burkina Faso in one of the most objectively suicidal maneuvers out there. They're not alone, and it's not Thomas Sankara being handed free cities. The Ptolemies and 2 Sicilies are also involved, alongside Georgia, Zanzibar, Lesotho, and the Kurds in a massive coalition war. That said, in the short term, this could be a very, very bad thing for the Tuareg, but if they can hold out, maybe this is their route back to relevancy. I've already made the vandalism joke, but wow, Genseric plops down 3 cities on the Windward Antilles, giving the Vandals a panormous advantage in any future American wars. What a perfect staging ground for the North African number 1s. Meanwhile, the Marajawara also expand further, settling Mantenados, and Maypen continues to grow as Jamaica's escape option. Andres de Santa Cruz is surrounded by blue, the ocean to one side and Paraguay to all the others. Fortunately, it doesn't seem too likely that the Mapuche will kill him, but they could soon if they can bring that army through his former capital. For Paraguay, the next job is to reconnect these 4 cities with their empire proper now that they've done the hard work for capturing a capital. South America still seems to have lots of surprises in store yet. Now this looks incredible. All the Yuan naval units have disappeared in an instant. At first I thought it was some kind of inexplicable piece, but no. Kublai Khan simply has had all his naval units killed. Girin may be gone, but the Manchu seem to have pulled off a remarkable defense, potentially making it the only casualty. We'll have to wait and see though, as the Chukchi in Japan may always come back for another go, and Aigun is not secure by any means. Well, I know who's in the ascendancy now. Germany. Gartharbehr is taking damage, Helsingborg is in the yellow, and the North Sea is red with Wilhelm's units. Will he push into Iceland further? You'll have to find out next episode, as I'll be leaving you here. Thank you very much for joining me for the last 30 turns, and I'll see you all around. Happy CBRX, and may the stonks be ever in your favor. And my name is Dawkinzz. Thanks for being patient, guys. It's been a little while. Just want to wish you and yours some happy holidays and a happy new year. I am going to try to get more of these out in the future, and it's good to be back. I hope you stick around. Please like and subscribe, because this video is probably coming out of nowhere for most of you. And with that being said, we'll see you next time.